call.
We are,
I ask that a unanimous consent that the quorum call be initiated.
without objection.
Thank you. Mr. President, I rise today in support of Dr. Laura Taylor Calais, the President's nominee to be Assistant Secretary of Defense for Industrial-Based Policy. As a member of the Defense Appropriations Subcommittee, I know that growing and sustaining our industrial base is a critical aspect of the resilience of our national security. And it's critical also to maintaining our competitive advantage with China and other near-peer competitors. A resilient defense industrial base is also vital to the support the United States is providing to Ukraine. Dr. Taylor Calais is well suited for this role, having served in the Obama-Biden administration as Deputy Assistant Secretary of Commerce for Manufacturing in the International Trade Administration, and as the Senior Advisor for Policy and Operations at the U.S. Development Finance Corporation. She has significant professional experience at the intersection of business and government, and has a thorough understanding of industry challenges and their impact on supply chains most crucial to our national security. Her experience across government, the private sector, multilateral organizations, and academia leave her well suited to help ensure the Department of Defense continues to deliver secure and resilient capabilities to our forces. Filling this position is important. It's vital to addressing critical vulnerabilities in industrial supply chains, to reducing reliance of foreign adversaries reliance on foreign adversaries, and securing domestic industrial capacity. All actions that are key to U.S. economic and national security. If we are serious about the role of the United States as a global competitor, we need a fully staffed and capable team managing the current and future needs of our military forces. Dr. Taylor Calais will help complete that team. And I ask unanimous consent that at a time to be determined by the Majority Leader in consultation with the Republican Leader, the Senate proceed to executive session to consider calendar number 1152, Laura Taylor Calais, to be an Assistant Secretary of Defense, and that there be 10 minutes for debate equally divided in the usual form on the nomination, that upon the use or yielding back of the time, the Senate vote without intervening action or debate on the nomination, and that the Senate resume legislative session.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator for Alaska.
Mr. President, reserving the right to object, I want to say a few words about the Biden administration's policies on the very subject to which Dr. Laura Taylor Calais is going to be in charge. Now, I have been working with this administration, probably more than most Republican senators, particularly on Department of Defense issues, on Department of Defense personnel, on helping them actually get confirmed. So I don't come down here and do this lightly. Heck, I introduced the Secretary of Defense, Secretary Austin, at his confirmation hearing, and then whipped votes to make sure he got confirmed. So this is not my regular course of business, even as it relates to the Biden administration, but particularly as it relates to the Department of Defense. I've been someone who's been trying to help. But I am objecting because the Biden administration's policies are completely at odds with the President's public statements and my friend from Wisconsin's statements about the need for an industrial policy and critical minerals that will help our military and help our economy. Dr. Taylor Calais will be in charge of this at the Pentagon. Industrial policy, critical minerals, rare earths. And what we're seeing, Mr. President, is they talk about this, but then they take actions against these very policies that hurt us. And the number one area where they take actions, Mr. President, is my state, the great state of Alaska, that has more energy for America, more critical resources, more critical minerals, more rare earths for our nation. For our nation. My state has had 40 executive orders or executive actions in 2 years from this administration issued singularly and solely against Alaska. Of course, that's crushing the economy of my state, workers in my state, but here's the broader point for this topic today. It is really undermining America's national security, critical minerals, natural resources. We all know we need them, and yet one big part of America is the target of this administration to shut it down. And it's ridiculous, Mr. President. As I said to my colleague, if a Republican administration went to Wisconsin or issued 40 executive orders and executive actions solely against Wisconsin or Maine, and you guys came to me and said, hey, Dan, help us. Geez, Louise, the war on Alaska, help. I would help. My state's getting crushed. Here's the specific issue that relates to this nominee. The president held a summit on critical minerals, a good example of what we need to do. On February 22nd, 2022, and he said, we need these critical minerals. The demand for them is going to increase 400 to 600% over the next several decades. Quote, we can't build a future that's made in America if we are ourselves dependent on China for the materials that power the products of today and tomorrow and our national security. That's the President of the United States on his big critical minerals summit, hosted at the White House to talk about supply chains and industrial capacity and military issues. Mr. President, the same day the President of the United States held that critical minerals summit, the Department of Interior said that they were going to reverse a 7-year EIS record of decision, $10 million by professional staff in the federal government on what's called the Ambler Mining District in Alaska, one of the biggest, most extensive sources of critical minerals in the country, maybe even in the world. And that same day, a project, by the way, has been in permitting since the Obama administration. That same day, they reversed it and said, Alaska, start over. Nuts. Crazy. So what I've done is I've put a hold on a couple Department of Defense nominees who are in charge of this area. And Dr. Taylor Calais is one. But I've been reasonable, Mr. President. I went to the Secretary, or the Deputy Secretary of Interior, the Deputy Secretary of Defense. We held a conference with White House officials, and I simply said, I'm not asking to reverse your crazy decision, which it was crazy. Hurts my state for sure, but hurts the national security of our country. I simply said, I want 3 simple asks. So I've been trying to work to get her nominee cleared. 3 simple asks from this administration. Identify a definitive workable schedule with a clear, legitimate timeline for completing the review of this project that's already been in almost 10 years of permitting. To do it in a timely manner, that was number 1. Clearly state the federal government's administration to allow the Alaska entities that are trying to move this forward to continue to complete baseline scientific data gathering and design work, such as wetland delineations, engineering reconnaissance for this road, that was number 2, and allow these Alaska entities that are moving this road and project forward to complete its planned geological drilling and core sampling program. which is critical to advancing the project and engineering design. As this case is now being remanded. That was it. That was it. 3 simple requests. None of these are hard. None of them are hard. I've raised this with the Secretary of Defense, the National Security Team, of course, Interior, and they keep telling me no. This is easy. If the Department of Defense, if the Secretary of Interior came and said, Senator Sullivan, I saw your remarks on the floor. I agree with all 3 of those things. You're right, they're simple. I would lift my hold today. So the ball's in the administration's court. They really want Dr. Taylor Calais to be confirmed. They could do it tonight. Meet my requests, which are quite reasonable. I did not ask them to review or reverse the crazy decision that they made in February of 2022. These are very simple requests. I've been very reasonable on this. No one on their side is being reasonable, so I will continue to hold her and some of the other DOD nominees who are in charge of critical minerals and industrial capacity in the Department of Defense until the simple demands that I'm asking for that not only will help my state, but will help the national security of America. And they won't do it, so I object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President,
Senator from Wisconsin.
I listened carefully to my colleague from Alaska as he objected, and I just want to add a couple of comments in response. I had a chance to share with him that there was a Wisconsin conflict between the Department of Defense and the Department of Interior, something that when I was a member of the House of Representatives, I worked on for 14 years. Could not get it shaken loose. Finger pointing. And then I had the honor of being elected to the United States Senate, where we have the power to place holds on nominees. And I had the opportunity, and took advantage of that opportunity, to place a hold on a nominee who was absolutely in the position to resolve the issue. And it's a powerful tool. In this case, the person who is being held could be doing so much to advance and grow our defense industrial base and helping improve our national security and resiliency. And this particular person is not in a position to, if confirmed, resolve the issue that I heard my colleague describe. And so I'm disappointed that we cannot move ahead with this confirmation at this time. I understand the power of the hold, but it's much more powerful when the person being held is also in a position to resolve the issue. And with that, I would yield back my remaining time.
Senator for Alaska.
Mr. President, I just want to say that I certainly would be willing to work with my colleague from Wisconsin on this issue. I've been working on it in good faith with other members on the other side of the aisle. Perhaps she can help me with this 3 simple asks that we have put forward to the Department of Interior. And if they agree to those simple asks, and they are simple, then I'll lift my hold. So maybe the senator from Wisconsin and I can work together on this. I yield the floor.